Hi friends, today now we are going to see about HTML style using CSS. That means for the HTML windows, what are the styles can be going to appear? CSS is nothing but the cascading style sheet. HTML style using CSS. We can style our web page with CSS. It is used to apply the style in the web page, which is made up of HTML elements. It describes the look of the web page. It provides the various style properties such as background color, padding, margin, border color, and many more to style the web page. Each property in CSS has a name value pair and each property is separated by the semicolon. This is the example for the CSS style sheet which are going to use in the HTML window. Tag body style equal to style text align center. H2 style equal to color red welcome to AMG. Page style color blue, font size 25 pixel font. Style italic. This is the output for this program. There are three ways to apply for the CSS. To use CSS with HTML document, there are three ways. Inline CSS. Define CSS properties using style attribute in the HTML element. Next, internal or embedded CSS. It is used to define the CSS using style tag in end section. External CSS. Define all the CSS property in a separate. It can be stored the file as .css file and then include the file with the HTML file using the tag in the section. Inline CSS is used to apply the CSS in the single element. It can apply style uniquely in each element. To apply the inline CSS, you can need to use style attributes within the HTML element. We can use many properties as we want, but each element should be separated by the semicolon. This is a good example for the CSS. H3 styles means header styles, color red, font style italic, text align center, font size 50 pixel and the padding top 25 pixel. Learning HTML using the inline CSS. Internal CSS. An internal style sheet contains the CSS properties for a web page in its head sections of HTML element. To use the internal CSS, we can use a class and ID attributes. We can use internal CSS to apply a style for a single HTML page. This is the example for the CSS style we are going to include in the HTML. External CSS. An external CSS contains a separate CSS file which only contains a style code using the class name, ID name, tag name, etc. We can use this style CSS file in any HTML file by including it in HTML file using the link tag. If we have multiple HTML pages for an application and which we can going to use similar CSS and external CSS. There are two files need to create apply external CSS. First create the HTML file. Next we are going to create the CSS file and save it using the .css extension. This file only will contain the styling code only, not any other. Just we are going to use style for our web program. That's all. Link the CSS file in your HTML file using the tag in header section of HTML document. External CSS. An external CSS contains a separate CSS file which only contains a style code using the class name, ID name, tag name, etc. We can use the CSS file in any HTML file by including it HTML file using the link tag. If we have multiple HTML pages for an application and which use similar CSS, then we can use external CSS. There are two files needed to create here. Apply external CSS. First, create the external HTML file. Create a CSS file and saving to using the .css extension. Link the CSS file using the tag in header section of HTML code. These are the commonly used for the CSS properties. CSS background. The CSS background property is used to define the background effects on element. There are 5 CSS background properties: color, image, repeat, attachment, and position. This is a good example for the CSS background color. Document type HTML, HTML head, style H2P. This is the cascading style sheet which are going to include our CSS with the HTML. This is the background color. Style, head, body, H2P, body, HTML. CSS background image. The background image property is used to set an image as a background of an element. By default, the image covers the entire element. You can set the background image for a page like this. Document type HTML, head, style, body, background image, URL paper1.gif, margin left 100 pixel. Style, head, body, h1 hello Java T point, body HTML. CSS background repeat. By default, the background image property repeat the background image horizontally and vertically. Some images are repeated only horizontally or vertically. The background looks better if the image repeated horizontally only. This is the another example to change the background image for CSS using the HTML. CSS background attachment. The background attachment property is used to specify if the background image is fixed or scroll with the rest of the image in the browser window. If we set the fixed background image, then the image will be moved during the scrolling in the browser. Background white URL, background repeat, no repeat, background attached fixed. CSS background position. The background position property is used to define the initial position of the background image. By default, the background image is placed on the top left of the image. You can set the following position: center, top, bottom, left, right, background white URL. That means we are going to set the image in JPG file bucket. Next, repeat, no repeat, attachment, and position center. CSS background color. These properties used to set the background color of an element. The background of an element covers the total size, including the padding and border, and excluding the margin. It can be applied to all the HTML elements. Syntax: element, background, color, color name, transparent, initial, and inherit. Let us discuss the possible values of the property. Color name. It is used to defining the background color value of the color codes. It can be given by using the color name, hexadecimal value, or RGB value. RGB means red, green, blue primary colors. Transparent. It is the default value of this property which is used to specify the transparent background color. Initial. It is not used to set the background colors. It sets the default value. Inherit. It is used to inherit the background color from its parent. This is another good example for your background color coding which are in the position. Thank you.